Hello, I think we're live. Hello. Okay, so now first things first, it is 2025. Does everybody got that? I'm kind of still worrying about it because I don't know. I'm not thinking yet, but it's 2025. Happy New Year. And thank you very much for being here. One of the things we're going to talk about today is 2025, what's coming up and what I'm going to do, on the live stream, stuff like that. But immediately today, we're going to be looking at the weathering that I did this week I'm going to go over here to the top of the D&D diorama. And I'm going to do like if we zoom in on not zoom in, I'm not going to do that. But if you look at the roof, I'm going to show you how to do the roof live. So I'm going to try to see if my live camera is on here. And let's look at that. So there's my live camera. It's not on, but here we go. Now it is. There we go. So I'll be doing a live weathering on this, and I'll show you how I do this. And again, it is these are real shingles. These aren't like faux or nothing like that. These are actual wood shingles, and we're going to see how to do that. So let me get over here, and I think we're looking pretty good. So thanks very much. I got Scott here. Hello, Scott. Thanks for making it in. And Paul. Hello, Paul. I really appreciate you making it in. I'm also, so I've had this thing where while I'm online on the live stream, sometimes I'll cough. It's because I talked to somebody about it. I'm straining my voice. I'm kind of overemphasizing stuff. So I'm trying to keep my voice a little bit more mellow, a little, I don't know, lower. And so please tell me if for any reason I'm not coming through well enough, because I can adjust my mic gain and all that. But let's look at the stuff today that we're gonna be looking at. I'm gonna swap over here again. No, not there. See, I have no idea what I'm doing here. I want to talk about this. So I released a couple of videos here recently. 19 days ago, I did my World War I trench. It's just like the trench part of it, not the whole thing, just the trench level of that. And I showed how to do that. Like that was the video. So that video dropped 19 days ago, and I got 1,300 views so far. That's awesome in 19 days. For me, that's really pretty good for a long form video. And over time, it does better. Then I did this. My model workshop walkthrough, that was 5 days ago, and I got 10.8 thousand views. I don't know. What the heck was that? So I'm trying to figure out why, because okay, model workshop videos are pretty funny because it's just, there's a lot. I guess it's just a lot of stuff people want to see in workshop videos. So they're typically higher, but man, it was just crazy. So I thought it was really cool. I thought I would show that. And I'm really excited about it. I have got some great new folks on. I want to say hello. And so Scott said, great to be here. And thank you, Scott. I am so glad that you are here. First class is here. Hello. And thank you very much, Daniel, for coming on. Don't weather the vocal cords, just roofs. Perfect. Thank you very much. Miniatures and small scale. Good evening from Sweden. Or is it afternoon? It's afternoon here, but evening there. Hello. And thank you very much for coming in. I really appreciate it. Mark is here. Hello, Mark. How's it going? I hope you are well. It is pretty rainy here. We're in the Pacific Northwest on the west coast of the United States and near Vancouver, Seattle, Washington, stuff like that. And we're going to have rain for a good little bit. So it is a very wet day, so it's perfect for modeling. What else are we going to look at today? I want to show you that. So I just thought that was fun to show you, and I would love for you to go see it and tell me what you think of it. But I also would like to know, what folks want to see in 2025 from the channel. I've got a full schedule, and at the very end of the live stream today, I'll show you that schedule of all my posts and Patreon and all that kind of stuff, because some things are changing there, some fun things that are changing. And I'm going to a single payer or a single tier on Patreon for everything that I previously offered. So that's kind of cool. So we'll look at that later on too. What else? Visual storytelling. So that is kind of my goal for this year, is to focus on visual storytelling. This is nothing new if you've watched this before. You know, I'm always talking about building a story in your diorama and trying to convey a message or get across to somebody an idea that you would like to express in the diorama. And I think that's easy enough if you're kind of doing it with like prompts, or it's one thing. I was just trying to see what pictures I had to show you. Well, so you didn't have to look at my mug when I'm yammering here. But whoops. But basically, I think that when you're trying to tell your story, be it a large diorama like I'm building right now, or a small one, you're always trying to get across a message. And if it's just a single level diorama where you've had maybe a vehicle or figures or something like that, and then you've got your terrain, well, that's a pretty simple thing. And it's almost like a picture or a snapshot. But that doesn't mean that you can't have a story there. You can put elements in there that have, I guess, as an observer, you see communication. You see people doing something by the figures facing each other. I mean, I've talked about this a lot, but that's really what I want to concentrate on this year, because I heard a great episode of the Plastic Posse podcast, their last podcast, number 108. And John Bonani, I believe, was talking about going to Southeast Asia and seeing some of the modeling, and they're in Europe as well, because he does travel quite a bit, and seeing these dioramas that really did tell a story. They weren't just, he said it was just next level to some of the stuff that he's seen, or the majority of the things that he's seen in the United States, because they are trying to tell a story. They are trying to relay or convey or emote a message. You know, they're really trying to get something from them and give it to the viewer. And I think that is a really, you know, that's been a focus of what I do in my dioramas. And I'm going to try my darndest in finding methods on showing you how to do it. You know, how do you do these things? I think I do it pretty well in my own dioramas. What I don't know is if I'm getting that information out so that other people can do that, because I do think we're entering into a little bit more advanced stage of modeling. I mean, it's great to be able to go into modeling right now, because there's so many things that are available to you so far as amazing kits, but also details that you can add to your kit, and things that make it interesting, things that help you tell the story of the idea that you wanted to tell in your diorama, in how you're presenting your model. And I think that can help a lot in making it, if you're kind of like, nah, I've built that, I don't know really what to do, or my motivation's lagging a little bit, or I couldn't really get it. Well, change it up a little bit. You know, I hear this a lot, this motivation question and stuff like that. I hear this a lot from folks that build models. That's it, right? They build models. They're exceedingly good, you know, because that's their concentrated effort, and they you know, just amazing model builders. But if your 15th tiger or your 7th, you know, harrier, I mean, you know, so instead of just trying to up your game, which is still something that is very attainable, just getting better, why not go in and try to tell a story, link it to an actual event, a person? Tail numbers on aircraft can be linked all throughout their service history and even after. And so you can find people that flew that, and maybe somebody in your family or a friend or something like that, and then link a story to that model. And I think the best way to do that is certainly through a diorama, but also try to have maybe an idea that you're trying to pass along with that too. Somebody standing by the aircraft is great. It's like a presentation. You're able to, model and paint it so it looks like maybe the person that you says, hey, they flew this back in Vietnam, or they flew this in air, whatever the case may be. That's a wonderful little diorama. Now have them like doing a pre-flight. You're literally doing a pre-flight on the aircraft. I've seen that done in dioramas, and it's just so much more interesting because you're looking at it like, well, they're not just standing there in a pose. They're physically doing something on the aircraft. I think there's a lot of interest in there. You can have two people going over, when they're, how fighter pilots, you'll see them doing the hand motions and stuff like that. Wouldn't that be cool if you had two figures, if you had a couple of figures in front of a Blue Angels aircraft, and they're going over their acrobatics with the hand signals and the hand motions that they actually do prior to flight or prior to training. They wouldn't do it in like a show because it's all, but that's a real thing they do. And I think that adds a little bit more to your model by including a real life story. People can understand it. And I think that makes maybe your model stand out a little bit more than maybe someone's just showing a very, very nicely built, Blue Angel aircraft. So anyway, that's what I want to really make an effort this year to convey how to do that, how I do it, how I learn to do it. Some of the, difficulties that I found along the way, because there are many, but I found ways to do everything that I've wanted to do so far. And there's always things coming up that kind of allow in this space of, diorama building to add something brand new. Okay. So I got a bunch of folks that said hello. So Sleazen is here. Hello, Sleazen. It's wonderful to see you. Thanks very much for coming in. Link is here. Hello. Happy New Year, Link. And Happy New Year to everybody else. I think I said it before, but I wasn't sure. So it's just been a little bit wonky. So thanks for coming in. So let's take a look at a few slides from weathering this week. I'm not going to show you any video of me weathering, but we will weather the roof. And so that'll look kind of cool later on, I believe. Let me go over here. So this is kind of where we left off last time. I'm already straining my voice, excuse me. This is the Apothecary Room. And the issue with this little room in my D&D diorama was I needed some way to transfer motion from this water wheel in through the wall to, that area in here. And that opens a gate under this level to get to the next level. Well, there was a few things that I had to do, and I think I wanted to show you those. So here I needed some kind of a bracketing like I had on the right-hand side. If you look on the right-hand side of the water wheel there's a small bracket. It's a holder. It holds the shaft, excuse me, so that it rotates properly and doesn't slip. I had to do that on the left-hand side. So I built all that up. I had to do it on the inside as well. So there's a plate behind that big wheel. And here's how I made that plate. Pretty simple, and then I put it together around the plate. Excuse me. And there's our final inside. And so that really came out good. I'm really happy with that. It wasn't until I saw this or built this little structure around all of that I figured out how to get all the pulleys and the ropes. Now, the neat thing about this is it actually physically works. It's over there. No, it's not. Heck, it's over there. It physically works. And that was what I wanted. Now, it's a bit fiddly. You got to get in there stuff, but it 100% works. And that was Scott's idea. Scott's on today. So thank you, Scott. And it was really fun to realize that in making it physically work. One of the things that I do want to do in my dioramas is look at those mechanisms, because I love mechanisms. I just love building them. And that might be another focus for this year. You'll notice there's a theme. I'm talking a lot about, what I'm going to be doing in 2025. Okay, so let's go back to this. After that, I went to this. Now, in the sewer level, which is the first sub-level in this diorama, there is a sluice or an overflow. So this goes out into the Bay of Krondor. So I just kind of finally put that in there. And I wanted some kind of a, like I said, sluice. So the little props there, this is just Woodland Scenics Scenic Glue. I love that glue. I think it works great. Dries completely flat, so you typically can't see it when it dries. And then I backfilled in that area with some Mod Podge and sanded grout, and then put some rocks embedded in there. This all still needs to be painted. When I do these things, I always come up with the sandy color because that's just the color of the Mod Podge I use. But I like that color because then it lets me see a light color that allows me to go darker or even lighter if I want. If you buy like a super dark, I've seen people do this. They start out with a dark or even a black sanded grout because you can buy multiple colors at the hardware store. It becomes hard to see the detail. I personally don't recommend it. I think a lighter color is better. I wouldn't go with white. Again, it's hard to hide white sometimes. This is called Haystack. It's kind of a tan, something along those lines. I think works really, really well. I've got a quick comment here. Miniatures, thank you for putting word and explain what I try to do, but never could explain. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'm trying. I'm really trying. Okay. Let's go back to this. Excuse me. The next thing after I did this, and this will just, again, I'm just kind of keeping you up on this, was to go back to Barrett's Coffee House. This is the flooring in Barrett's Coffee House. I haven't done any kind of shading or anything like that, but I finally started to do this. This is like white pine. So it doesn't have a lot of grain, not a lot of texture. So I just went with a faux color. I started with deck tan, doing everything in acrylic. After the deck tan dried, I went back in and I used orange ochre and medium brown, German camo medium brown. And the thing that I liked about that is it's just kind of this streaky effect. It doesn't have to do a lot, but it just needs to give a little bit of variation in color to the wood. It's going to be not covered, but there's going to be a lot of things in here eventually. And so I just needed some color in there. And I'm really happy with how it came out. There's just like a top-down view. Okay. So now it is the front of this thing and trying to get this thing weathered. So I've got some pieces here. And before I started painting this, what I needed to do was fill in a couple of these pieces that I hadn't figured out. Like this little piece up here. This is the wattle and daub. On the back side here, I hadn't put these in, so I put in a couple panels here. I put this panel in. But then it was just a process of doing some light weathering, but also giving it enough depth and giving it enough so it looks like, okay, this is medieval times. And I like the dirty universe thing. Remember in the 70s when George Lucas introduced the dirty universe kind of thought pattern where you didn't see these spaceships all clean and stuff like that. They were dirty. They've been used. They're in a world that's actually seeing, use and stuff like that. Well, that's what I go in for here. So even though this is a nice, restaurant building and stuff like that, I've got a fair amount of weathering up here. In the medieval days, what were they burning? Well, they were burning everything for heat and this and that, and there was a fair amount of smoke. So smoke would get on these buildings, and because you didn't have like normal maintenance stuff like that, it sat there until somebody cleaned it off. So this stuff could build up over time. That's the look I'm going for. So I did all of these externals all the external panels. But on the inside, if you'll notice, they're stark white. I wanted to have that difference. I figured that they would have dirt on the outside because it's hard to get out there, but the inside, they're going to keep it really nice. So I kept everything on the inside stark white, but on the outside, of course, it's weathered. That's upside down. So I weathered those. Now, in weathering these, and I'll utilize the exact same paints, but the process in weathering these with acrylic paints is very specific, at least for me. The first thing I do is I use, and I might as well go to the top down here. Let me do that real quickly. Sorry. I'm going to go to the top down because I want to show you these paints and show you how I prepare them. And we might just, roll right into weathering the roof line here. But let's do this. I'm going to do that and then that. There we go. So when I do my first weathering, I use this. It's burnt umber and black. I mix them together. This is just some, this is apple barrel black. It's matte black. This is Liquitex, great color, burnt umber. About a 50% mix. And then I add water to get it down to a consistency that I like. You may have a little bit more. I'm still gonna, use this and make a little bit of a wash out of it, but this is like my base color for doing a lot of the stuff. Also, it's the base color that I use for all this wood. So it's a very, very dark brown. So the first thing that I do, I'm gonna swap this out on this, is that dark brown and black, or dark umber, burnt umber and black color. And I wash the entire surface. Now, the process of washing that surface is really washing it with water first. If you try to put this acrylic on a dry surface, it's just going to go suck right into it. So wash your surface just with plain water first, and then you bring in your color. And when you bring in your color, and I have, like I said, I have video of this, and it's going to be in a video. I'm not going to show that part of it today, but we'll see it on the roof. But on the white, you bring that in around the sides, where it's going to gather, any inclusions that might be in the like this crack, in the details you have there. Those will pick up that black. Those, it'll hold black in those areas. And that's what you want. Let it dry. I love to work with acrylics, especially in this medium where I do it wet. So I keep it wet and I add colors because then the colors will flow. But on the very first coat of this, I'm just trying to get some grunge. I'm trying to get just some contours. I'm trying to define the individual white panels themselves, and all of the physical weathering that I did to them before painting them. And that's what that wash will do. A little heavier on the outside, not much on the inside. After that dries, then I come back with the other paints. And then the other paints, because I only use 3 paints when I do my weathering. And it is orange rust. It's it's Vallejo Model Air orange rust, and green yellow. And I'm very, very specific about how I put those on as I'm doing it. So I'm going to show you that. I wasn't going to do one of these, but no, that one's not good to do. But I have one that needs work. And so I think I do need to show you. And I think you'll appreciate it because it is kind of a thing you got to work with. It's Mama and me. I'm trying to find one. Yeah, this will work. I decided not to do this, and now I'm going to do it. And the reason I wasn't going to do it is because it's just so hard to focus on. So I'm going to try to get really kind of tight in here. And I think this will make a lot of sense. So what I first do is I take my water, just like I was saying, and I just want to wash my surface. This one doesn't have too much on it, so I'm going to work on that one. So I'm just taking plain water. Remember, when I first started this, it was just white, okay? Once I've got that plain water, I'm going to take, I like to use these little dishes here, and I take some of my burnt umber and black. I put a little bit in there, but I'm still kind of making washes. You know, I don't want just some big, huge blob of color on there. And I mix that up. So it's a thinned paint. It's relatively thick to start with, so this isn't going to lose any color, but it will allow it to blend a little bit better. So as I come in to this panel, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my burnt umber and black and just go right along the edge. And you see how it's making kind of a really dark. And then this line on this side here, it's hard to see here, but, well, it's not too bad. What it's doing is, because the water's there, it didn't make a hard line like it's real dark here and then real light here. It blended. That's the water. Okay, that's the water that I put on the first time. So now if I want to make that even blend a little bit more, I just rinsed off my brush. I'm using a flat, wide brush. I rinsed it off. So I still have water on it. And now I'm just going to draw this right next to it. I'm going to overlap that black right there that I put in there. Not all the way, because I don't want to get rid of it. I'm overlapping where I've got half of the brush is on black paint, half of the brush is on no paint, and it's just water on it. And what I'm doing is I'm drawing that paint into the white. And what you'll notice is that paint now will move this direction. There's a lot of water, so it's still going to kind of, you know, do the streaking and go down, but it blends it right into the white, just like that. Little more water, and that's how you're blending that over this relatively flat surface. It's not all that rough, but it's rough enough to go ahead and hold paint. So once I've got there, again, I would do the whole thing blacks, and you get that black shade. You can see it now. The reason I tell you it's a fair idea, oops, I wanted to cut. The reason I tell you it's a good idea to let that first coat with the black, the grunge coat, dry is because it goes on and it's pretty dark when it's wet. It lightens up dramatically after it dries. So you might have to do this a couple times. And the reason I'm not doing it wet with all the other colors yet, I want it to dry, and then I'll bring in the other colors, is if I do bring in those other colors, I have a good chance of just wiping it off. You know, just the water will just reactivate the paint, just wipe it right off. The pigment will just flow down. If I let it dry, it's going to stay there a little bit more. Now, I've got to be careful because there are points where, and I'll show you here, I can go back, and let's say I had a little bit too much dark there and I wanted to show, sometimes, you know, when water flows, it will clean away grit, right? So what I can do is I can, again, with the flat, and I've got water on it, I can come in here where I just did that black, and I can just come like this. And it's just washing that away, even though that sat for a little bit. And even some of this old stuff, I might be able to get some of that off from last night. But I can wash that stuff away. So if I leave it not to dry, pardon me, if I don't allow it to dry, is what I should have said, it's not going to build up those colors in those layers that I'm trying to build up. I want a layered color. I want that black, that gritty black on the background. And then I'm going to introduce the orange rust on top, and I'll introduce the yellow green on the bottom. The yellow green is supposed to represent like mildew and mold and stuff that's growing in shadows, in the creases, and in the little crevices of the wall. So I basically look at each of these little panels at the bottom and the top. The bottom gets green. The top, which is the orange rust, which really kind of looks yellow in the diluted, wash that I'm going to make out of it. That's from the top. That's watermarking. That yellow is coming from the wood on the roof that is, dripping down. And sometimes you get yellows from wood, right? When it seeps, cedars and stuff like that, the oils, blah, blah, blah. So that's why we're using this orange rust for the top down. So let's look at that. I then can do about the same thing. And I'm not using a lot because I am making washes. So it's just a little dot in there. And that's the orangey rust. Here is the yellow green. See, it's just a little bit. I'm not trying to add moss or anything like that. I'm trying to give the effect of moss and the color of moss. I can go back and do moss, and I will on the roof line, but not on the walls. I don't want that. So here I'm going to use a larger brush just to mix these guys up. So look at that wash. The color is all washed out, as you might imagine. And look at that. So that orange rust looks pretty darn yellow. So I'm going to go to a smaller brush now. This one is kind of a longer one. It's going to hold a fair amount of paint, but it's not going to make a huge blob of color. And I don't want that. I want to come in here with these colors. I'm going to introduce them at the top, and I want them to find their own path down. I'm letting it drip. Don't worry. Again, it's very, very, very washed out. It's very dilute. Don't worry about getting too much. I can come and scrub it off later, but I'm trying to, number one, find the path that the water would naturally make down this. That's important. And then I can exemplify that later. But number two, I'm trying to show streaking. So I'm not just washing across it. I'm just dabbing up here and letting it fall. If it doesn't go all the way down, I just add a little bit more, and that'll catch up to it and draw it down. The next one is the green. I don't want to add, if there's something up here, like a dent or a break or something like that, sure, add green. But I'm putting green on the bottom, okay? So I'm taking here and I'm just painting up. You see what it's doing? It's also clearing out some of that other paint. So you got to be careful. That's what I meant about letting the black dry. I didn't because of our demo, but this one's over here is a little bit more dry. So let's see. So that I can go over that. It's not pulling away the black and the other colors I've there because they're dry. If I scrubbed, it could, but now I've just added a green tint there. Now, when I'm talking about this yellow and green business, I don't want to see yellow and green. I want to see just the slightest hint of it. And I might have overdone it a little bit on these even, the way they are. You see it's a little bit green there. But again, as they dry, they'll lighten up. But you see over here, over here, there's a fair amount of green and yellow on there, but you're not looking and you're not seeing green and yellow, but your eye's picking it up. And your eye is associating that green on the bottom in the crevices with something that it would naturally see. The little tracks of the yellow, I'm not done with that either, because what I'll typically do is after I've got those tracks with the yellow that's dripping and showing, watermarks that are coming down, the side of the building, I'll go back with black on the sides of it and really kind of bookend it with color. And here you can see that very clearly. Pardon me. See this? Here is one of those where I was talking about sometimes you'll see that a water drip will clean off an area and make it, white like the underground, but the other stuff to the side of it. So that's the other thing I'm doing here. By putting those little inclusions, I guess, I don't know, maybe it looks like a mess up or something like that. Your eye will focus on it. Your eye will say, hey, what's that? Why is it like that? and then your brain will obviously rectify it by assigning what it is to it, and you're making someone think it's something whatever you want it to be. If it's green, it's mold. If it's yellow, it's calcium and blah 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 that's dripping down on the stuff. So yeah, I think it works great. I want to go back. I've got some points here. Miniatures and Small Scale says, I like the sewer entrance. How do you use it when you made it? I could see it as a one-time scenario in a tabletop RPG, but isn't a lot of work for a few sessions. Very, very good point. It comes apart, and the things inside can be moved around, first off. It probably won't be played a lot. I'm gonna do like an online. I want to do an online host a game. I'm really excited about that when it's done. But yeah, that's it. And I don't honestly play a lot. I'm a diorama builder, and I just built it because some people were saying on my last diorama, boy, that would be fun to play a game in. I'm like, I'll just build one. So yeah, it is meant to play a game in, and it can take it apart. But what I didn't do is when you take those individual pieces apart, can you reconfigure them to like play them a different way? That's really what I'd like to do. Because this was my first shot. And I think it would be a lot of funner. And I talked to somebody about this a little bit ago, where you just have your diorama and you plug vignettes into it, individual vignettes like I do, because every little scene in the diorama is like a vignette, right? So just build an individual diorama, but it just plugs right into a larger diorama. Or like they do with game boards, it's make octagonal, that's why it's octagonal, pardon me, but make octagonal little pieces that you can, like having a common entry and entryway on each of them, where you can move them around and get a different playing surface because of how they puzzle fit together, but by reordering them. So that's an idea for one of my next ones. I don't know exactly what my next one is. I have a very strong indication of what it is. I've talked to Mrs. Modelcraft about it in particular because I'm really excited about it. It's something that we both just love. So that's, I think I have my next one, but what I'm talking about is not the next one. But yeah, so there you go. But yeah, I love building it. And for me, a diorama, I look at them and I love looking at them and keeping them here. This one I'll play one, maybe 2 games. I mean, I don't know, I'll DM it and I can invite other people online to play. And maybe, just one per is great. But that's the plan. And then I don't know what I'm going to do with it. It's going in a corner or somewhere in the shop. Benny is here. Hello, Benny. It's great to see you. Benny is from Germany. And I lived in Germany for, 3.5 years ago. So that's really cool. Thanks very much for coming in, Benny. So yeah, that is, and we're going to get back to that because I want to show you how to do it. But that's really how I did all of the weathering so far. I really like to try to keep it to 3 colors. I think that 3 color little thing works in so many different places when I'm doing weathering and stuff like that. And the reason I try to do it with 3 colors is I want them to contrast. I want them to be kind of, in the same area, color palette, whatever. So I don't want them to be like red and pink. Well, I guess that would work because it would be but anyway, you know what I'm saying? I don't want it to be so that they're so contrasting that they shouldn't be on the same palette. But if I get too many colors when I'm weathering and doing stuff on the diorama, I'll put it down for a week and I got to come back and I'm like, what colors were those? And how did I apply them? It's really a self-preservation thing. It helps me remember what colors I've used. And by keeping it to 3, that establishes the whole color for the diorama. Not to make it look monochromatic or anything like that, but it helps me. Too many colors in weathering, specifically weather is what I'm talking about for terrain, then I think you can confuse the eye a little bit. So that's what I do. That's not to say that someday I wouldn't put more. As a general rule, though, I just like to use 3 colors. Let us go back and look at some of my slides, I think. So there's doing that. Here's some of those close-up shots. See, there's the yellow before I added the green, after I did the black, just close-up shots. Again, the yellow. And I will need to go back. Here's the white before any other colors but the grunge. So you see, there's not a lot of grunge on there. When I initially put the black on there, there's not a heck of a lot. It doesn't mean I won't go back to it, and I won't add more black, the black and burnt umber, sorry. I won't, it's not that I won't go back and add some of that, but I just need to get a little bit on there initially to kind of establish where I'm going to be putting the colors. Okay. Okay. So, this is a little different because there's a break in the little wattle and daub, and I pretty much held those to the little warehouse on the side. This is the next floor up from the warehouse, and the general layout. Here is after I've added more greens and more yellows, and certainly to the bottom, there's some more as well. And inside, underneath, I think there's going to be a lot of streaking and stuff because stuff doesn't get cleaned off. Even the rain doesn't get a chance to clean off. So I tried to go with a little bit more underneath the eaves and things like that. So that's where the diorama is today. That's where it stands. And that's as much weathering I've got done to it. I have not weathered the doors, the windows, and things of that nature. Those all have to be weathered separately. And I will go back, and the boards, the structure, the brown, white, or maybe the deck tan is a great thing to show things leaching out of the wood. If you see old wood on a building and stuff like that, and we're fortunate around here, we've got a couple of towns that have these kind of buildings, Leavenworth in Washington. And if you look closely at some of the wood that has had the weathering and has, gone through that, I think the easiest way to represent that is with a white. If you try to go too little, like a tan or something like a wood color, like deck tan or something like that, it may not be enough. I think it needs to be very stark to show the weathering and stuff like that. Gray is another color that really comes present when wood is weathered. So gray is one that I use a lot. But that will have to happen to the wood here too on certain areas. Now, one of the things that I guess figured out when I was doing this is I want to do it all at once. So after I got the black, I stacked it up, and that's in the pictures you see. As I'm doing this, I'm actually doing the weathering of it stacked, even on the base. It was even on the base because I wanted to see how it looked with the base while I'm weathering. I've done this before, and that's why I do it all together when I'm doing my weathering. But I've done it before where I'll weather a component of the diorama and another component of the diorama. And because I do relatively large dioramas, when you put them together, there can be dramatic differences. Like the whole tone of this one layer or level is different than the one above it. So learn from my mistake when you're doing something like that, and that's how I do it. I do my individual details, I do individual painting, I do all this stuff. That's what I've been doing for, heck, I don't know, 8 months, 9 months. I've been doing all this individual stuff, but at this point, everything has to be together to get that overall color, the overall weathering. Everything should fit together to include the color. You don't want the washes up above not to look similar to the washes down below. So just a tip, I guess. I hope that's what you're here for. Let's see what else we got. I have other things to talk about. Roof weathering demo. We're there. How about that? And then we're going to talk about my drying rack because I built a drying rack. But let's go to our roof weathering. And, you know, I've seen a fair amount of folks do this, and it's not like I am here to tell you something remarkably earth-shattering, but I think it's one of those aim things, you know, what I'm trying to accomplish and the things that I am trying to notice are what I want to relay to you, I guess. You know, how I see this and how I treat this. So the first thing is I'm going to take these colors away. I'm going to make a heck of a mess here. So you see I've got paper towels, they're all ready. Because what I want to do first, and it's with this really dark color, I added more to it. Let me mix it up a little bit better. But I'm using a very, very dark color. I like to go with my dark colors first, just because even after I work with them, the remnants of that dark color, you're going to be able to see it. So I've got that mixed up. It's relatively thick. It shouldn't be too thick. I want it to act naturally, so don't have it too thick because it won't run. It won't dribble. And that's exactly what we're going to do is we're going to dribble it off of the roof at certain points to find, I'm getting more water in here, so it's more runny. We're going to find the actual patterns that the water is going to make on the roof line. And I think that's important. I think that when you, okay, see, I was just going to show you, and I'm swamping. Hold on. What I'm trying to say here is I want to establish what the water does naturally on that roof line first. Then I'll come back, maybe even wash some of that away and level it out. But I have to identify it first. And as much as we think we know, you got to let the materials, you know, show where the water's going to go. So now let's go back to this and I'll give it a shot. So I am just taking my eyedropper and right here I've got a high area here, a low area here. It's all cattywampus. This goes like this. So I'm going to start here and just see where stuff goes. And that's exactly what I'm looking for. See this? It went here and then it went down. If I were to just take a big paintbrush, right, and dip it in this stuff and then just start going like this, it's not going to show me that trail right there. Or it might be, you know, maybe somebody that's more adept at this than me, maybe they could find it, but this is how I do it. So I'm going to do another one. And don't worry about these marks. They're going to be shadows. That's pretty straight down. They're going to be shadows when it's all said and done. Because even though it's you know very dark, it's not really, after it dries, gonna be that dark. So don't worry about how it's leaving these dark streaks on it. Those dark streaks are what I'm looking for. So everything's going down very nicely. It's just these areas that, oops, wrong stuff. These areas that, you know, where it hits these channels and comes down, that's really fun. So now that I've identified these, I need to get a bigger brush. Now that I've identified these, now I'm going to do the same stuff, but I'm going to go over the whole top. And this is more like you've seen other people do. They just kind of do this, and then they just bring those colors down, you know, and that's fine. That, you know, that no difference there whatsoever. But once I start doing my different colors, like the orange and the green and that kind of thing, that's where this, you know, these specific drip marks and stuff like that, those are going to come into play. Okay, I need a lot more of this stuff to make this happen. So I'm going to mix up some more. Now, the other thing is my water, my base water over here. You know, that as I wash my brush and stuff, it's going to get dirty and dirty and dirty. Totally fine. I use that water. You'll see a lot of other people do it too. You need that dirty water. It is basically just a super diluted bit of the same paint. I'm trying not to wash those streaks because I want those streaks to act as natural darker places in it. I need a way bigger brush. I'm gonna go grab one real quick. There's not one right there, so I gotta go over here. So when here we go. Sorry about that. Yeah, dead air, perfect on a live stream. Here I've got a much bigger brush. That's what I should have had from probably the start. And I'm kind of, like I said, I don't want to lose those lines that I've got there, but I want to get stuff on here. Now that I've established where those lines are, I can see where they are. The issue I'm having, I just got to restart that. The issue that I'm having with, the streaking and getting this other stuff on here, it doesn't really want to soak in, right? It's staying kind of on the surface. Well, I wanted that to happen initially because I needed the streaks. But now that I've got that established, alcohol. So this is just denatured alcohol that I keep in a little spray bottle. And what that'll do is that'll break the surface tension so that the water will kind of soak in to the shingles and not just run off. I can still use my lines that are there. That's fine. We've established where they are. But now I just want to cover it all so I get a fairly even coloring. And so that is just alcohol. So let's swap back. Take a little alcohol. And, one of the other things you can do with this is you can also add the alcohol to your water. And you can also add soap, just regular soap. Remember science class? Soap breaks surface tension. So that's perfect to get this to stick better. Now, I'm just making much more of this because I need a bunch. I hope I have a big enough palette here to do it in. But you'll notice now that I've got alcohol on there, what it does when I add this. See that? It's not doing the little rivulets anymore. I'm still getting some nice areas. That's still that darker area. So once I've got the whole roof done like this, just like the side panels, I'm gonna let this dry. I don't want to wash off all this pigment, this paint pigment that I put on here. So it's important that I let it dry. Once I start coming back, and we'll just skip ahead here. Now I'm going to do the same thing with the yellow. Remember, the yellow comes from the top. The green is from the bottom. So I'm going to get some more of my, and I say yellow because once I add water to it, it turns yellow, but it's actually orange rust. That's the color of the paint, is orange rust. Now here, it's a good sized brush, but it's not that huge brush because I do not want this everywhere. I want this to hit those areas that we established. See, that's what I want with this. I could probably use the eyedropper, but I want to put this in these areas. This could probably use a little white, like I was saying before, maybe some deck tan to give it a little bit more, where it stands out, and really jumps out at you. But if you keep doing it, it's going to give you the yellow. The same with the green. Remember, yellow from the top, let that come down. Green is from the bottom. So here, where you're going to see water collect, water will kind of pool and puddle at the lower end, and the roof line does kind of kick out at the bottom. So I'm just dabbing green in here. I don't want to see green. I want a green tone, just this light green tone that starts to be picked up when you look at this. Okay. Now, this all has to dry. When that dries, I don't want a single color. I want streaks. I want that, mottled color. The variations are hugely important. And then I'll go back and start picking out individual tiles for individual paint. Rarely are you going to see an old roof that hasn't been repaired. So some of these tiles, I'm going to kind of clean off and make them look a little newer. And not one, you don't replace one tile typically. It would be like a little patch, like 4 or 5. And so I want a little bit of a change there of color. They should look a little newer, right? Not as gray, because that's another thing is I will come back and when I talked about the deck tan and the white and stuff like that, those grayish tones, I will be bringing some of that in. The other thing is the moss. So when I'm doing, let's go back over here. When I'm doing this, again, I don't want to see green. It's just the green will permeate down here. There'll be a tone. But if I have moss, I will have a very distinct green up here, and it'll be right underneath. Let me get something I can point better with. It'll be right underneath one of these guys, and it's going to be in a shadow. So there's a little bit of a shadow there, and it's going to try and be in the shadow of the roof line too. So if you establish where your sun's going to be in this, I haven't really, but I typically think the sun is coming from behind it back here. It's this direction, then all of this could have a fair amount of little bits of moss. For those, I probably will paint a little bit, but I will use some of the, like the shrubbery and stuff like you can get from Woodland Scenics. I'll use little dabs of that and stuff like that. Don't want to go crazy, I've seen really, really mossy roofs, and I'm not ready, I don't think, to pull that off, because it's really hard to pull off and look right. But yeah, I've seen it done, and it's really good. So I'm not going to do that with this. This isn't operating. It's not like a house in the woods. It's not like that. But a little moss shows a little age, and that's good, and breaks up the contour up there. Yeah. So I think we're looking pretty good for that. Let me see. Is there anything else I would do to that? It is a point of allowing the colors to dry. Everything should be streaking. Everything is always falling. You shouldn't have a big patch of color and then different colors around. You know what I'm saying? Everything needs to go in a vertical kind of motion. Everything should be falling on the roof. And if you forget, where your tracks are and stuff like that, you can just redo it, of course. But it's really important to follow those tracks. Your eye is going to be able to pick up if you try to do a little drizzle and you do it like weird, you're thinking, oh, maybe it'll just go over here. Your eye's going to pick it up. And so that's really important. That very first thing, that really first thing about doing that drizzle with nothing else on it, see where the water goes, see where your paint goes. And I like to do it with that dark paint because, it establishes like a shadow right off the bat. So let's see. I think we can go here. I think. There we go. And we're going to look at a drying rack. Excuse me. So this is my paint booth and drying rack or in drying booth. And I needed something in it so that I could set things on it to dry. And so that's what you see there. There's this little rack in there. And what it is if you look at the doors on my spray booth, those glass doors, I made a third one, and that's what this is. So I just took that and then put some slats in it. They're all just glued in, all the same wood. And once they were glued in, I made these legs, put some nice legs on it. And I guess I'm showing this too because oops, sorry, wrong deal. A bunch of folks have been asking about, the woodworking and stuff I do. So I'm not going to be doing a lot more woodworking or anything, but I am going to try to show you step by step to do woodworking, because it all does relate to dioramas, all the woodworking I do. And since I've been doing it for 30 years, I just want to try to get some of that information out too. So that's what this is. These are making the little legs. And then, sorry, I made 6 legs. When I do woodworking, I like to do 1 or 2 extra on a component in case you mess it up. So then I just, I did some nice little, joinery on the corners, put those in there. And now I've got this nice little drying rack inside my, in my drying rack and paint booth. Okay, let's talk about this. This is my patrons and my YouTube members, which is really going to change. Not really. It's just that we went to a single tier in the patrons. And I really like it because it includes everything that I had before. But, excuse me, it's only $3. The top tier previously was $10. So I took away the $1 tier and I took away the $10 tier, and everything's $3 on my Patreon now. And one of the first things that's going to come up, of course, is this evening we have a group build. And so each Friday, the first, second, and fourth Friday of the month, we have a group build from 6 to 8 p.m. on Fridays. I'm going to go here because I've got a little thing. I'm going to come back to my patrons because I want to say hello to them and talk to them. But here's the schedule. So the daily diorama update, I'm not doing on Saturdays and Sundays anymore because it was just killing me. So it's Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Social media posts, I hadn't figured that out last before. It's going to be every Wednesday. So that's why I'm going to do my Facebook, my Insta, and my Patreon. That's what I'm going to be uploading to those social media locations. My how-to live stream is still going to be on Fridays. It's still going to be at noon. Though I do want to change this. I am going to be sending out some surveys. I'm going to ask some questions, and I really want you to tell me what you want to see. What sucks? Stuff sucks on my live stream, and I need to get rid of that. And I need to have more stuff that's like, that's awesome. So please, please, please tell me either here or in the, send me, I don't care. You can send me a letter. But please tell me what you want in regard to that. I know what direction the channel's going, but I am, as you can tell by my earlier post of, the one video that got 10,000 views in 5 days, and the other video got 1,900 views in 19 days, or 1,300 views in 19 days. There's a disparity in me understanding what you actually want to see. So I want to try to figure that out. I think I can deliver it. I just want to know what it is. So that's part of what I'm doing there. Let's go back here. Excuse me. Saturdays are long form videos around the 15th of each month. I'm not going to do a long form video every Saturday. It's just the 15th of each month, like one a month. I want to increase that to more, but that's what it is now. Patreon weekly group build Friday, 6 to 8 p.m. Did I already say that? No. Yeah, that's tonight. And then the Patreon monthly group build is the third Sunday from 10 a.m. to 1. And I really want to keep that schedule now all year, until we understand if it works better or not, whatever, we can make changes, stuff like that. But the whole goal is to try to give folks the opportunity to come together and learn. I need to learn. I want to teach. I want to coach, but I also want to learn from you because you have experiences. Every single time I do one of these group builds and stuff like that, well, I learn something. And so it's really focused on that. So the third one that will happen each month, the third weekend of the month on Sunday, that one will be, it will start out, it's 3 hours. The first hour is all going to be about me teaching something. I don't know what yet. It's going to be about dioramas. And I also want to open up the shop a little bit more. John Robeck, great friend. He's always wanted to kind of do a little bit of metalworking, brass. It's definitely part of scratch building and dioramas and things like that, and certainly something I do a fair amount of. And I want to tell you what I know about it. If you have a specific skill that you would like to share with other people, bring it. You know, these group builds are where everybody's online. You know, everybody's able to discuss and talk. It's not just me yammering and you're typing. So I think those are a great venue for that. And while it's been going well, sometimes, most times, it's just me and John, or me and Martin, or maybe me and Josh, or you know what I mean? It's sometimes just me and one other person. I really want to expand it so there are other people involved. Uh, Obviously, you have to get something out of it, so that's why I'm asking, what do you want? But I want it to have more folks involved, because the more folks that are involved, the better the ideas are and things like that. So that is what I hope can happen. Right now, Patreon, and let's go back to my slide real quick because I want to say hello and thank you to my patrons. Those are my patrons right in the middle, and that's the patrons that I have on the 3-tier system. 2 days ago, I turned off the 3-tier system, so it goes to the 1-tier system. I can't move you to the 1 tier if you're in the 1 or the $10 tier. It's up to you to go to that. I'm sorry, I can't do that. But I have stopped charging anybody that's in the 1 tier, the $1 tier, and the $10 tier. So if you had set up, you know, the automatic charges through Patreon like they do, don't worry, I turned that off. You're not going to get charged if you're not on the $3 tier. And if folks fall away, I'm very sorry that you have to, but I also understand if you had $1 and you can't do the higher amount. I 100% understand. If you're at the 10 and you just, you know, you're not sure what to do, give me a call. I can figure it out with you. I think Evan and John, the only people that were there that we need to move back. So, and if they should choose, I just want to make that clear. So that's what's going on, folks. I have a lot more content, specifically content that I'm creating this year, that I'm concentrating on creating this year. I am going to do smaller dioramas. Fact. The reason is my big dioramas take a year. You know, they take like 9-10 months. And I love doing that. I love working in that space, and I love getting used to that space, and I love developing it, because the longer time you spend in it, the more ideas and things like that. But I do have a lot of dioramas that I want to build. I have a lot of ideas that I want to try to express in those individual dioramas that are vastly different from one to the next, because I like to do sci-fi and, you know, World War I, World War II. The D&D thing has been phenomenal. I love the D&D. I'm a real big Lord of the Rings fan, so you see there's something there that might happen. So I'm really excited about this year, and I just want to make sure that the content that I'm putting out, folks like it. I'm answering the questions that you want answered, and you're excited to see it when they pop up, or you know, you've scheduled to see it as soon as it pops up. That would be even cooler. So that's what I got. I hope you have a wonderful new year. I'm super excited about the new year. I think that I've got a bunch of projects. I've got a bunch of new stuff that I can't talk about now because I'm trying to build on it. I start a class in the 14th of this month, and that is a class on storytelling and writing. So yeah, I'm really invested in the storytelling in your dioramas, and I want to really get that out there, because I see so many great dioramas. But sometimes they're just that snapshot, and I think they could be gone. They could go a little bit further. And I'm not dogging anybody's diorama, because I love seeing other people's, but the ones that already have a story and they show something happening like I try to emulate, those are the ones that I enjoy looking at the most. So I really want to help other folks achieve that through my experience. So that's what we're doing this year. I hope you have a wonderful one. That's all I got. It is Saturday tomorrow. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Tonight we have the group build. It starts at 8. So I hope everybody can make it. There's like 13 or 14 people that are going to be that can go to that. And I hope you can make it. Thank you very much. I hope you have a wonderful 2025. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye. We'll see ya.